Yeah, there are some listed properties that you target the ones that have been on the market for a while that are overpriced, and you can make some offers on those. Sometimes you can get them that way. A lot of the commercial brokers are hesitant to submit lowball offers on properties. So if you get one that is resistant and you're not licensed, then you can go straight to the seller, and you can tell that broker, hey, look, please present my offer. You just never know. You might catch somebody in the right mind frame, or the right time in their life when they're ready to sell. I know it's been priced at $2 million. We all know it's not worth 2 million. I can pay $1 million, you know, and if they don't want to present the offer, then you can present it directly to the seller. There's nothing wrong with that. And even as a licensed broker, if I get somebody who's kind of stubborn on the other side, I'll tell them, look, I'm happy to take the offer to your seller, or you can take it, whichever way you want to go. So listed properties are one way. Another way is especially on commercial, driving for dollars is huge. So you're just driving around. And if you see a commercial building that looks, abandoned, vacant, dilapidated, rundown, a lot of commercial property owners just don't put the money into the maintenance and the upkeep and deferred maintenance. They're just pocketing the cash. So the properties fall into a state of disrepair, and it's easier for them just to sell it and cash out than it is to, fix it. So you can use the driving for dollars approach, and then obviously direct mail is another one. With commercial property, typically a nice professional letter is the way to go. They're not going to respond to postcards or things like that. They're going to respond to phone calls. They're all really happy to talk to you about their property, about what they do. They're all sophisticated investors like you are and like I am. So it's a different conversation, and they're going to know real quick whether you know what you're talking about or not. So, you really want to make sure you're educated and you know what you're talking about before you go after a commercial, property owner. And one of the ways for a lot of people that are just getting started is to, let them know you're starting out, you're new, you want to learn. Would you be willing to do a deal with me? Would you be willing to owner finance, or, help me do this deal? A lot of commercial property owners will do that. They'll take you under their wing, and they'll help you, by financing. They'll help you by, if they know there's a highest and best use and they just don't have the money, and maybe you can bring the money, component to it and do something together. They'll work it through with you. So it's just a different level of conversation, and most of them are happy to answer the phone. You can get directly to them, and a lot of them are big companies and they might have layers, but when you say, hey, I'm interested in buying the property, I'd like to speak with, the owner, they'll usually put you right through. And I've never had a problem getting directly to the owner on a commercial property. Much easier than residential.
So what are some interesting stories from doing that? Have you run across any sort of interesting circumstances or situations with some of these properties?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I've had one of the things that I used to do a lot of is oceanfront hotels, because the land was more valuable as a residential house. So a lot of properties I've purchased over the years have been, residential hotels, and I've had two of them that were really interesting. They were both destroyed by hurricanes, and one of the sellers tried to go through a redevelopment process and convert the destroyed hotel into condos. And I told him at the time, the regulations wouldn't allow it. You don't want to go down that road. And, instead of, taking my advice, he went ahead and tried to do it. They tried to do it without getting permits. They ended up in a big lawsuit, and it was just a huge mess. About 3 years down the road, the guy walks in my office out of the blue, and I'd moved location. So I was in a whole different office. I hadn't talked to the guy in 3 years. He just comes in off the street and says, hey, I'm ready to do your deal now. So we got together, did the deal, and we were going to tear down the hotel, build 4 oceanfront houses, and we had a piece of land across the street that we would own free and clear. And we were going to, build a couple of houses on that, or some townhouses or something like that. So this was 2007-8 timeframe. And just as the market was shifting then, and I didn't really know how bad it was shifting, we just knew something was going on. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. He said, why don't you just sell the oceanfront parcels, and then you're free and clear on the, semi-oceanfront side, and just develop that. So we ended up doing that. And, I tore the building down, sold the oceanfront lots, and we had the piece across the street left to develop. And, it was really good. We ended up making about $1 million just on the oceanfront side, just by selling it. And we were projecting to make that building it, so that was a pretty interesting, scenario, how that works out like that sometimes, where you think you're going to do one thing and you shift gears and do another. And it was totally happenstance. I was talking to a friend, about the project, and he said, why don't you just do this? And, sometimes you just get in that go mode, and you think, man, I'm just going to go, and I'm going to build these things and just deal with it. And, all of a sudden you take a step back and you're like, wait a minute, it's kind of like retailing, right? You don't always have to renovate, a house to get the profit out of it, especially right now in certain areas. So, you know, that was kind of interesting. Another one, we had a piece of land in front of where we kept our horses. So my daughter rides horses, and we kept our horses on this property behind. There was a couple of houses on this, I don't know, I think it was about 4 or 5 acres, something like that. And I'd gotten involved in a gymnastics, trampoline, cheerleading program. Another one of those deals where a guy called me up, said, "Hey, I'm struggling in my business. I have these kids. You know, I've got this program. I got 75 kids in it. You know, come check it out." And he was a junior Olympic level coach. He was operating out of a little building and had 75 kids in the program, and it was really awesome. And I was big into, you know, the rec center and youth sports, and I coached every sport. You know, I've got all girls. You know, that they played over the years. So I had a passion for kids and a passion for helping them. We didn't have a gymnastics program in our area. You know, it was a very small community. So I said, okay. So I went ahead and bought his program, built him up, took him from 75 kids to 360. I put him in a 10,000 square foot warehouse that we built out into a really nice gymnasium. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to buy this piece of property out in front of our barn, and we'll build a building, you know, to put you in. So I buy this property, tear the houses down, and build a 16,000 square foot metal building we were going to put the gym in. Well, during that time, I had taken the program nonprofit, given it back to him, but now it was a nonprofit, and he was the executive director of it. And the nonprofit board decided, you know, we really don't want to take on that much overhead. We like it where we're at. We want to keep it small. And I said, okay, that's great. So I put it up for sale, and a Harley Davidson dealer came into the area and bought the building from me, and we turned it into a Harley Davidson dealership. So, you know, that's another one of those things where you start out with one thing and it ends up, you know, being another. So
Right.
that's what's really cool about real estate, is that you just never know where things are going to go sometimes, in the commercial world especially. And I tell you what's really fun too. So one of the things I like to do when I buy a building that has been occupied, like a hotel or like houses or whatever I'm going to tear down, what I'll do is I'll open it up to people that want to salvage things. So like the hotels, both hotel properties I bought, I just kind of put the word out and said, okay, for this weekend, before I tear the hotel down, come get whatever you want. And it's really amazing to see what people actually come salvage from these things, right? And they do a lot of the demo for you. So I put a dumpster out there and invite them and say, come on in, take what you want, you know, and people come in. I mean, they take the light bulbs, they take, you know, pictures off the wall, the little TVs in the room. I mean, it was really interesting and a lot of fun to kind of watch that little frenzy going on, you know. I mean, you got 100 people crawling all over this property, you know, pulling stuff out. It's pretty neat, you know. Some people, I don't know, one guy found $100 in stamps, you know, he cracked into a safe, and that's what was in there. So anyways, you know, when you're on the commercial side, it's interesting, the different things that you can get into and the different directions that a project and a property can take.